let's look at an automation that we built for a client that allows to automate podcast production. The way automation works is built in N8N. It curates the news in a particular sector in the industry, allows the human to select a piece of news that is podcast worthy, and creates an audio podcast between two people talking through the news in a very fluid, playful tone of voice, and then automatically publish a podcast on selected platforms. It all happens with 2 free buttons and human in the loop system. Let's go straight into it. So it's built using N8N, and as you can see here, you have 4 different automation. The first one is News Scraper using Perplexity and ChatGPT. I tested this a lot. For some industries, ChatGPT works better, for others, Perplexity. So we give a choice and we have a diversity of news. Because there is still a little bit of subjectivity. What does it mean, a relevant, actual, or newsworthy or viral potential piece of news that is part of the prompt? So Perplexity, we can look at the automation now. So there is schedule is a trigger, search the category, and there are multiple categories that you can do because this automation allows to scale podcasts and to have 5, 10 podcasts and work for them. Searches the news, parse the output and split it out and creates an ad table. In this case, there is an ad table, and as you can see, every day you have Perplexity and have a ChatGPT. But apart from it, you can also generate your own piece of news or use your blog post. Like in this case, I took a 4-play blog post and I put it as a source, and automation automatically created title, description, and I can also use that as a source of my podcast. So I can either use the news that I scraped, I can add news that are not gated and the pieces of news that I like, and I can use any link from my website or website of other companies to generate a podcast. That was scraping the news. Let's look at others. So we have podcast generation that works with the push of the button. You get the article. If there is no title or there is no description, like in my case, when I just added the link here, the automation also generated these elements. And then afterwards, it goes the most important, what automation does. It goes to Auto Content API and uses ElevenLab GenFM to generate podcasts. Currently, ElevenLab doesn't have API, or it's enterprise level to get API directly. So we're using Content API for that. So when you press Generate Podcast, all it comes up with Auto Content API generating an audio podcast. It's an audio podcast only. And here there is status because sometimes there are errors. Errors are particularly if there is a YouTube as a link or there is a gated content that ChatGPT can't use to create a podcast. Right. That was generation of the podcast. And there is also one more automation that publishes podcast using Transistor FM, where all the podcasts are connected to different platforms. And as soon as you press publish podcast, the automation is triggered and it publishes. So you have to select a show because you can have multiple shows. And as I suggested, that is one use cases, but you can have multiple categories, multiple clients. And this is MVP of a potential product. So you can say, I want test 2. And now it will be scheduled. But you can see the other podcast that was scheduled. Thank you, my developer, for this beautiful name. Why scheduling sex doesn't always improve. Like that is and you can listen to it here. So this is how the automation. Oh, that was quite fast. Thank you. Transforming date nights from routine to ritual. Again, test 2. As a setup, you will need to set up the image, the description of the podcast to have all the information. So yeah, this is how it works. I find it quite incredible to see that any company targeting small businesses or B2B can generate podcast in seconds and reach the audience with a very niche targeted messaging. So I hope you found it useful. Thank you.